apology is never coming. And somewhere in the honest, undefended part of you, the part that stopped hoping before your conscious mind was ready to admit it, you already know that. You have been waiting, not always actively, not always with the specific, conscious orientation of someone who checks their phone, or rehearses the conversation, or imagines the exact words that would finally make the wound make sense. Sometimes the waiting is quieter than that. It lives in the background, in the way you still flinch at certain memories, in the way you still reconstruct what happened, sometimes involuntarily, looking for the version of events where the person who hurt you eventually arrives at the honest accounting of what they did. That arrival is not coming, not because they are incapable of growth in some permanent, absolute sense, but because the specific acknowledgement you need, the precise, personal, this is what I did and this is the damage it caused acknowledgement, requires something from them that they have not demonstrated the capacity or the willingness to provide. And here is the brutal truth that most healing content circles around without landing on directly. Your health, buying, cannot wait for them. Not because healing while waiting is uncomfortable, because healing while waiting is structurally impossible. The waiting is the mechanism that keeps the wound open, not through your failure to move on, not through weakness or excessive attachment, but through the specific neurological, entirely understandable way that unresolved emotional experiences remain active in the nervous system until they are completed. The apology felt like the completion. It felt like the thing that would allow the wound to close, the nervous system to finally downregulate, the unresolved story to reach the ending it needed. And in its absence, some part of your system has been holding the file open, waiting for the data that would allow it to be closed. The data is not coming, which means you have to find another way to close the file. Not for them, for the life that has been waiting on the other side of this wound. Most people underestimate what waiting for an apology that never comes actually costs. Not the obvious cost, the continued pain, the recycled anger, the occasional intrusive memory that surfaces without invitation. Those costs are visible. They are what people point to when they say they need to heal. The invisible cost is larger, and it is the one that makes the waiting genuinely unsustainable rather than simply uncomfortable. Every day the wound remains open and unresolved. Your nervous system allocates resources to it, not consciously, automatically. The same way it allocates resources to any unfinished threat, by maintaining a low level of activation around the unresolved experience, keeping it accessible, ready to be processed the moment the missing information arrives. This allocation is not neutral. It is expensive. The specific, metabolic, cognitive, emotional expense of a system that is carrying an open file, a wound waiting for closure, runs continuously in the background of every other experience you are trying to have. It narrows your capacity for genuine presence in new experiences. It places a subtle ceiling on your capacity for joy that is not the result of depression or pessimism, but of a nervous system that is genuinely occupied. And here is the specific cost that is hardest to name and most important to understand. The waiting keeps you in relationship with the person who hurt you. Not in the external sense, you may have no contact, may have left the relationship entirely. In the interior sense, in the way your nervous system keeps them present as an active variable in your emotional life. Every time the wound activates, every time the memory surfaces, every time the anger or the grief or the specific ache of the unacknowledged hurt rises, you are pulled back into a dynamic that should, by any honest measure, have concluded. They are living rent-free in the most valuable real estate available. Your interior, your present experience, the specific, irreplaceable territory of your own consciousness where your actual life is happening, where your genuine attention should be present, is being partially occupied by the unresolved account of what someone else did to you. Here is the mindset shift that begins to change this. Closure is not something they give you. It is something you build from the inside, through a process that has nothing to do with their participation and everything to do with your willingness to do the specific, uncomfortable, non-linear work of completing the emotional experience yourself without the contribution they were supposed to make and will not be making. The heal by eyeing does not require their presence. It requires yours, fully, in the wound, without the protective distance of waiting for someone else to make it safe enough to go there. The word forgiveness is one of the most misused and most damaging words in the vocabulary of healing. and the misunderstanding the specific, culturally pervasive, deeply unhelpful version of what forgiveness means and what it requires is responsible for more stalled healing than almost any other single factor. So let's be precise. Forgiveness is not the statement that what happened was acceptable. It is not the erasure of the wound's reality or the minimization of its impact, or the spiritual bypass of genuine pain in favor of a performed magnanimity. It is not something you owe the person who hurt you. It is not a gift you give them. Forgiveness is a physiological event that you create for yourself. The specific, internal, entirely self-directed act of releasing your nervous system from the obligation of maintaining the open wound as an active, continuously resourced experience. It is the decision made not from the feeling of forgiveness but in the direction of it, with the trust that the feeling follows through. EI decision rather than preceding it to close the file, not because the accounting was completed, because you are done paying the cost of keeping it open. Here is what forgiveness actually feels like when it is genuine rather than performed. It does not feel like warmth toward the person who hurt you. It does not feel like the lifting of all pain or the immediate resolution of the complicated feelings that remain. It feels like release of a specific tension you had not fully noticed you were holding. Like the nervous system's quiet exhale when a threat response that has been running for months or years finally, slowly, begins to downregulate. It feels like getting more of yourself back. Not all at once, not in a single moment of spiritual breakthrough, gradually, in the specific incremental way that genuine physiological change always occurs through repetition, through daily practice, through the accumulated signals sent to the nervous system that the threat is no longer active and the resources allocated to monitoring it can be redirected. Here is the practice that produces this release. Not writing the letter you will never send, though that can be part of it. Not visualizing. A conversation that will never happen. Something more internal and more direct than either of those. The daily, practiced, spoken aloud acknowledgement directed not at them but at yourself of 3 specific things. What happened? Named honestly, without minimization and without the inflation that makes the wound larger than its actual dimensions. What it cost you. Named specifically. Not in general terms but in the precise, personal language of someone who is finally willing to look directly at the damage rather than managing it from a comfortable distance. And then this is the part that requires the most courage and produces the most movement: what you are choosing, not what they deserve, what you are choosing, for yourself, for your nervous system, for the life that is waiting on the other side of the resources currently being allocated to the open file. You are choosing to close it, not because it was resolved, because you are done being defined by its unresolved status. That choice made daily, spoken aloud, genuinely felt even imperfectly is the beginning of the actual healing. The wound is not only emotional, it is physiological. And the physiological dimension of you, unresolved hurt, is the dimension that most healing approaches address least directly and that therefore remains active longest, even when the intellectual and emotional processing has been substantially completed. Your nervous system stores experience as sensation, as the specific, located, bodily memory of what it felt like to be in the moment the hurt occurred, the tightening in the chest, the specific quality of the gut response, the physical signature of the emotional impact. And until that somatic record is processed, until the body has been given the opportunity to complete the physiological response that the original experience initiated, the wound remains active at the level where the most persistent symptoms live. The nervous system does not care about the narrative you have built around what happened. It does not respond to the intellectual understanding that you have developed about why the person did what they did or what their history explains about their behavior. It responds to the specific, embodied completion of experiences that were interrupted before they could run to their natural conclusion. Here is what completion requires, not the apology. Completion does not require the missing piece from the other person. It requires the missing piece from you, the specific emotional response that was suppressed at the time of the original wound because the context did not make it safe to express. The anger that was swallowed, the grief that was managed, the fear that was functional necessity at the time but that has been stored in the body, unprocessed ever since. The specific, authentic, unperformed emotional response to what happened, the one that your nervous system knows should have had expression and did not. Find a space where you are genuinely alone, and give that response expression now, not for an audience, not in the direction of the person who created the need for it, in the direction of your own body, the body that has been holding it on your behalf, waiting for the moment it would finally be safe enough to let it move. Speak the anger aloud, physically. Let the grief have its full expression without the management that has been keeping it in the controlled, containable form that is easier to carry. Let your nervous system run the response it has been holding in partial activation for however long this wound has been open. This I. But T.S. not dramatic. It is not the performance of emotional catharsis for the sake of feeling something. It is the specific, targeted, physiologically necessary completion of an experience that your body has been carrying as unfinished business. After the expression comes the specific somatic practice of return. Slow breath. The physiological sigh too inhales through the nose, one long exhale through the mouth that signals to your parasympathetic nervous system that the threat response can downregulate. Hand on chest, the felt sense of your own warmth. The specific, grounding recognition that you are here, in the present, and the original wound, however real its impact, is in the past. The body heals when the emotional experience is finally allowed to complete. Your nervous system has been waiting for permission to do what it has always known how to do. Give it permission. Today, in whatever form the expression needs to take, here is the final truth. The one that everything in this script has been building toward with the specific patience of something that needed all of the preceding context before it could land at full weight. The person who hurt you will not be changed by your ongoing suffering. They will not be held accountable by your wound remaining open. The unresolved nature of what they did will not, through your carrying of it, eventually produce the reckoning or the recognition or the consequence that justice requires. The only person paying the ongoing cost of the unresolved wound is you. This is not fairness. It is the specific, emotionally neutral, practically urgent reality of how unresolved wounds operate in a nervous system. They do not know who deserves to suffer. They simply run, in the body of the person carrying them, at the cost of the person carrying them, regardless of who created the need for them. You have been paying a debt you did not incur, with the most precious currency available, with the specific, irreplaceable hours and attention and presence of your one actual life. That ends today. Not in the sense that the healing is completed as a process, not a moment, but in the sense that the orientation shifts. From waiting for external resolution to building internal completion. From holding the file open for data that is never arriving to beginning deliberately, imperfectly, with full acknowledgement of the difficulty, the process of closing it yourself. Here is your specific practice for the next 30 days, every morning before anything else. 3 minutes, hand on chest, eyes closed. You speak 3 sentences aloud. Adjust the words to your specific wound, your specific experience, your specific truth, but the structure remains the same. What happened to me was real, and it caused real damage. I name it honestly rather than minimizing it. I am no longer waiting for acknowledgement that is not coming. My healing does not depend on their participation. I choose today to redirect the resources I have been allocating to this wound toward the life that is waiting for them. 30 days, 3 sentences, spoken aloud. With whatever genuine feeling is available each day, some days very little, some days the full weight of everything that has been held. Both are valid. The practice does not require consistent feeling. It requires consistent return, which you will discover not immediately but genuinely. In the slow and honest way that nervous system healing actually unfolds is that the wound begins to occupy less territory, not because it becomes less real, because you have stopped feeding it the continuous attention that keeping it open required. Space will open. First just a little, then more. The specific interior space that the wound was occupying the territory of your attention and your energy and your present moment capacity will gradually, imperfectly, with the beautiful nonlinearity of genuine healing, become available for something else, for the relationships that deserve the full quality of your presence, for the creative work that has been waiting, for the specific, irreplaceable experience of being genuinely, completely here in your actual life. In the actual present rather than partially suspended in the unresolved past of what someone else did and never acknowledged. You do not need their apology to heal. You needed it for justice. Justice and healing are not the same thing. Justice may never arrive. Healing is available right now. In the decision made today, remade tomorrow, remade every day after that until it becomes the ground you stand on rather than the choice you make to stop waiting for someone else to give you what only you can give yourself. Completion. Release. The specific, permanent, life-altering freedom of someone who chose their own heal. Buying over the waiting. The apology is not coming. Your life is. It has been waiting, with the patience your wound never extended to yourself, for you to finally turn toward it. Turn toward it. Now. Without waiting for one more moment of someone else's acknowledgement to make it feel safe enough. It is safe. You are ready. The healing begins here, in this breath, in this choice, in this moment of finally, completely, without apology choosing yourself.